The Buddha once said, "It is essential that the Sangha should come together for the purpose of collectively reciting the Dhamma precisely as I have taught it." Both the literature of their religion and the meaning behind it is of great importance to the traditional Buddhist monks, and at all 6 Buddhist councils, beginning with the first, the entire Sangha attendance has, in chorus, recited the Buddhist doctrine in its entirety. The teachings of the Buddha have been handed down through the generations and are found in 3 baskets of literature known as the Tripitaka. The first basket, known as the Sutra Pitaka, contains all of the Buddha's discourses. The second basket, known as the Vinaya Pitaka, states the rules set forth by the Buddha for monastic life. And the third book, the Abhidharma Pitaka, which was most likely written later than the other 2 scriptures, discusses the Buddha's discourses on his philosophy and his theories on higher learning. The Buddhist doctrines have a long oral tradition in that all of the Buddha's lectures were remembered by his monks. These doctrines were then passed down word for word through the generations, usually by arhants, or worthy ones, who had freed themselves from passion. Because of this freedom, the arhants were capable of precisely remembering large volumes of work, preserving the Buddha's teachings exactly as he had spoken them. The procedure for reading these doctrines as set forth during the first council goes as such. The teachings are always recited once by an elder and then chanted back by the assembly. The recitation must then be judged as authentic and voted by the Sangha members to be the true teachings of the Buddha before any other discussions occur. These recitations are known as the Dhamma Sanjitas. The traditions of the recitation were laid out at the first Buddhist council and have remained unchanged throughout 24 centuries and 6 Buddhist councils. The first council was held in 544 BCE, 3 months after the Buddha's death. It was convened by King Ajatasattu and was held in the Satyapani cave outside Rajagaha. 500 arhants were in attendance and took part in the council's proceedings. The council was prompted by an incident in which a monk protested against the rules laid out for monastic living in the Vinaya Pitaka. The elders believed that the Dhamma had to be preserved to prevent monks from interpreting it as they pleased, so they questioned an expert monk concerning the Vinaya on the specifics of monastic rules. The Vinaya was then approved, as was the rest of the Dhamma. The second council was called 100 years after the Buddha's death. It was called by King Kalasoka and took place at Vassal. 700 monks took place in the council's proceedings, and the entire Tripitaka was read and voted on by the attendants as the true word of the Buddha. The council was primarily called to settle disputes over the Vayan monks' breaking of 10 minor rules set forth in the Vinaya Pitaka. These offenses consisted of 1. Storing salt, 2. Eating after midday, 3. Eating once and then begging for alms, 4. Holding the Uposatha ceremony with monks in the same area, 5. Carrying out official acts without the entire assembly, 6. Following a practice because it was done by one's teacher, 7. Eating sour milk after the midday meal, 8. Drinking a strong drink that has yet to ferment, 9. Using an improperly sized rug, and 10. Using silver and gold. These practices were thought to contradict the Buddha's original teaching. The monks debated the matter and voted against the Vayan monks, who refused to accept the decision and were therefore expelled. Many events contributed to the need to convene a third Buddhist council. First, disputes began to arise between 2 different schools of Buddhism. The first of the schools, the Sarvastivada, translated meaning proclaiming that all exists, was an early school of Buddhism which believed that the Dharmas existed in all 3 times, the past, present, and future, simultaneously. The basic idea of the Sarvastivada was to regard the universe and everything in it as reducible into many indivisible substances of existence. The second of the schools was the Vibhajivada, translated meaning analysis and discussion. This school says that the first step to insight must be achieved by one's experience, analysis, and reasoning instead of from blind faith. This belief stems from the Kalama Sutra's teaching that one should trust their own experience above anything else. They believe that only the present time exists now. This school, formed during the Third Council, combined all the orthodox Buddhist schools and is often named the precursor of the Theravada school. Another aspect that necessitated a third Buddhist council was the effect Emperor Asoka had on Buddhism, the Sangha, and its integrity. Asoka was named Emperor of the Mauryan Empire in 270 BCE. He violently attained the throne by killing all rival princes except his own brother. He was a violent ruler engaging in many wars with neighboring countries, such as Kalinga. This invasion caused the deaths of many thousands of people. The immense bloodshed had an effect on Asoka, and he pledged never to wage war again. Asoka sought non-violence and became a Buddhist. He made religious pilgrimages to places such as the Buddha's birthplace and the spot from which the Buddha delivered his first discourse. Asoka also erected pillars at important Buddhist landmarks and wrote edicts on the pillars preaching morality, the Buddha's teachings, and tolerance and acceptance of all religions. He established hospitals for both animals and humans and developed a highway system for India. Asoka was very generous and aided Buddhist sanghas with large monetary gifts. These gifts attracted greedy people who had no wish to attain enlightenment, only to gain his gifts of clothes, food, shelter, and medicine. These greedy people led to impurity within the sangha. Some of these people even wore robes and infiltrated the monastery without being properly ordained. The real Sangha monks refused to hold the Uposatha ceremony in the presence of these corrupt monks. Asoka, feeling responsible for the upset in the Sangha, sent a minister to command that the monks perform the ceremony. When the monks refused, the minister beheaded them until coming to Asoka's brother, who had since become a monk. Appalled by what he had done, the minister reported back to Asoka. Asoka then sought the advice of the elder Tara Magalaputta Tissa, who proposed that the unworthy monks be exposed and expelled from the Sangha at another council. The Third Council was therefore held mainly to rid the Sangha of corruption, but also to reconcile the different schools of Buddhism. It was convened in 326 BCE and was held at Asokarama in Paliputta. The council was attended by 1,000 Sangha members and was presided over by the elder monk Magalaputta Tissa. At the council, the monks from the Sangha were questioned on the teachings of the Buddha, and those who held the wrong ideas were expelled from the Sangha. To ensure the purity of the Dhamma, the elder Magalaputta Tissa wrote a book called the Kathavatu, which contains 23 chapters capturing discussions refuting heretical views held by certain sects on philosophical matters. This book became the fifth book of the Abhidhamma Pitaka. The Third Council also marked the split of the Bhivajivada and Sarvastivada schools and the expulsion of the Sarvastivada doctrine. At the Third Council, Emperor Asoka sent out missionaries who had great knowledge of the Buddha's teachings to spread Buddhism to many different countries. He sent out about 60 missionaries to Greece, Gandhar, Kashmir, the Himalayan regions, Mysore, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, Burma, Malaya, and Sumatra. It is possible he also sent missionaries to Syria, Egypt, Macedonia, Epirus, which is now northern Greece, and Cyrenia, now northern Africa, as a Buddhist tradition can be found in all of these cultures' histories as well. The effect of the Third Council was widespread and deep. All aspects of the Council's decisions and Asoka's actions led to a change in the history of Buddhism and of many Middle Eastern countries. Two of the most successful of Asoka's missionaries were his son, Mahinda, and daughter, Sanghamitra, whom he sent as heads of the mission to Sri Lanka. There, they converted the king and queen to Buddhism. The king began supporting the missionaries and provided the necessities for them to continue their teaching of Buddhism to the Sri Lankan people. Asoka's children built a monastery near the capital of Sri Lanka, where Sanghamitra established an order of the nuns as well. Because of the effect Asoka's son and daughter had on the king and queen of Sri Lanka and their success in converting the Sri Lankan people, Buddhism became the dominant religion in Sri Lanka by the 2nd century BCE. The spread of Buddhism into other parts of the world by Asoka's missionaries was not as drastic as the success seen in Sri Lanka, but a Buddhist history can be seen in countries as far west as Greece and possibly all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. These Buddhist histories and the influence Buddhism had in these countries are a direct effect of the missions sent forth by Asoka. The spread of Buddhism to countries other than India ensured its survival when the Muslim religion took over India and Buddhism was destroyed as an organized religion in India. The Sarvastivadin Buddhists, who had been rejected during the Third Council, became prevalent in northwestern India and Central Asia. The Sarvastivadins, who believed that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, may have even influenced the Mahayana tradition. Asoka's influence was great, not only in other parts of the world, but in India as well. Emperor Asoka, for the first time in history, unified the country through religion, and Asoka's practice of religious tolerance in India has long remained a part of India's history. Asoka was also able to create a society where non-violence existed, and many people followed the peaceful ways of Buddhism. In this way, he created a cultural transformation in India. Emperor Asoka had an immense influence on the cultural and religious history of all of India and southern Asia. The long-lasting effects of the Third Council were a major part of Asoka's influence on India's history. These effects changed the course of Buddhist history by establishing Buddhism as a dominant religion and ensuring its longevity through purifying the Sangha and spreading the religion to other countries.